Okay, good evening. Welcome to the March 8th, 2020 meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Tom, if you could call the roll.
Yes, Daniel Buxa here, Roland Raffin here. Note that Stuart Friedman is absent, as well as a member who was appointed last night, Brad Hemingway, is also absent. So Chairman, Mayor. Present.
Present. Okay, next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the February 8th meeting. Has the other members had a chance to review the minutes?
Madam Chairperson, I would make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Tom, minutes have been, a motion's been made to approve and second. Call roll.
Yeah, sure. If there's no discussion, then sure. Dan Buxa.
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes.
Sharon Mayer.
Yes.
I'll also just point out that Town Council Liaison Mayor Nolan is also present. Sorry to call you on the roll.
Okay, so moving on, preliminary hearings. First one we have is BZA 22-002, Jeffrey and Nancy Nixon, requesting approval of a variance from table 26.40582 to permit a 6-foot tall fence in a front yard at 8004 Hogan Avenue. Tom, do you want to give us a briefing on that?
I will, yes. As it states in the staff report, this is a variance request from two standards in our zoning ordinance. The property address is 8004 Homan Avenue. Which you can see is here. It's residential property. The background of this petition is that, do you guys mind closing the door? Sorry, it's a little noisy. The background on this is that the petitioners had installed a fence in their north lot line that extended past the front of their house. It was noted by staff that this was the case, and they contacted Mr. and Mrs. Nixon to inform them of the violation of the zoning ordinance. And after discussing the situation with them, they decided to submit for a variance from that standard. And in addition to requesting a variance for that existing nonconformity, they showed the town their kind of overall fence plan, and it included an additional fence to be installed kind of like right here in front of their house. If you had viewed the staff report, and this is a picture that they actually provided to us, you can see there's a small, almost like a wrought iron fence that extends out from the corner of their house here. So in addition to seeking a variance for that fence on the north side, they're also seeking a variance for this to install a new 6-foot fence along the kind of the front plane of their house here. You'll notice that it shows here in this picture and in the materials that they have provided as part of their application that they want to draw a distinction here between the corner of the house here and the corner of this addition, which kind of, you can't really see it in that image, but it kind of juts out a little bit. So because of the sort of unique shape of their house, this is technically considered the front yard. So anything in front of the closest roofed portion of the building is considered a front yard. So you can see that this is where they want to install that second fence, or really not second fence, but a continuation of the fence. In the staff report, I've kind of noted what our code says. In a front yard, the maximum height of a fence is 42 inches. And so this is a 6-foot fence, so they're requesting a variance from that standard. I also provided the definition of a front yard just so that everyone can understand why this is required for this southeast corner of their property. So that being said, they have provided a number of photos and renderings, and there's actually an additional presentation that was provided, which I can pull up now. I know that Mr. Nixon would like to kind of go through and present his request to the board. And unless there are any questions from me, I'll go ahead and pull that up.
If you want to put it on full screen.
Yeah, I'll get that.
So you can drive from there. I'll talk and I'll just kind of.
Okay, if you could talk into the microphone, that would be great.
Mr. Nixon, before you get started, will you introduce yourself and provide your address for the record?
Yeah, I'm Jeff, and this is my wife Nancy Nixon, 8004 Holman Avenue in Munster, of course. So if you go to the next one, why a fence? Other than the obvious reasons, on the south side of the property, this is our neighbor's fence in the backyard, which we have full view of. They don't, but it's actually really falling down. You can see it in the back, next to the alley, there's no bar on the top. And even if you lean against it, it would fall over. In the upper right-hand corner visual, you see a weed, kind of a brush weed that's growing and actually pulling the fence away from the pole that it was connected to. Also, their house is well overgrown, all the shrubbery is overgrown. Go to the next one. On the north side, we have our neighbor's garage, which is the string, and you kind of see the property line there. It's about 4 feet from the property line. This is their junk area because they don't see it from their house, but we see it from ours. For the record, we are friends with both sides of neighbors. We don't have really any conflicts or anything, but we just kind of bear this over the years, knowing that at some point you're going to build this fence that would take care of these problems as much as we could for us, because we're very visual people and aesthetics mean a lot to us. You know, the next one. This is one of the reasons, Nancy, this is part of her garden, her whole yard's a garden, but you can see the passion she has for this. Right now, the backdrop is what you saw in the previous images. And we'd like to have a nice backdrop, so her garden really looks nice from when we look out from our windows. A little more of the garden. This is from the backyard, and this is the front yard on the side. These are the fence plans and plots, which you're familiar with. So if everybody's familiar with the situation, we can go through the, move to the next one on this. This is the fence plan, just to give you an idea of how it was drawn up. We'll go to the next one. This is the back gate. This is the front gate that's going to be in the back, the back behind the back of the driveway as you pull up. So you would view this from the street. There's going to be 2 stone columns, granite columns, and a 6-foot fence widthwise. This is a detail of the top of the stone column. This is the inside structure of it, which I put a lot of time in to figure out how this could go up in a good way and have the strength that it needs to last over time. As he was mentioned, the north fence has been built. So these are some pictures of the north fence. This is from my neighbor's driveway on the north side. This is from our driveway looking back to the alley. These are some details of the fence post that is a transition from one height to the next and also coming off into another direction. So the issues on this, I think Tom made a good, presentation on that. And if everybody's familiar with this, basically the fence, as you can see there, our kitchen window is the second big window left from the front of the house. And this covers from pedestrians looking in while we're eating and also from traffic. Going to the next one. This is the reverse angle where you're seeing what we see. And it blocks out those two things really well. This is the next one where we're talking about what we felt was the front of the house as the town sees it. The second addition, the little bump out, is now, according to them, the front of the house. So we want the fence to go up to the front corner and over to the front of the house. And if you could go to the next one. This pine tree on the left there has been cut down recently. You go to the next one, you can see why. It even puts more emphasis on why we want this, because it really makes us vulnerable for both security and privacy. So that's two basic reasons that we want this fence to extend to the front corner of the house and over. Just for the insurance appraisal, go to the next one. The insurance appraisal, they determined the house to be rectangular. It's a little irregular, slightly irregular. So I think what most people would view that as the front corner of the house. And then these are, as we've been told and learned more about the code, I just drove around our neighborhood, just, blocks in our area, to find situations that are exactly like what what we need to go and present to you guys to get permission to do what we want to do. The 6-foot fence on the right-hand side of this image goes up to the front corner of the house. Actually, it should go to the bump out, or in this case, this part of the house takes up more of the percentage of the side of the house than ours does. So this should actually be going to the smaller part of the house that's back probably 6 feet back, according to the code. Go to the next one. This is another fence that extends out past the garage, which it should be by the code, go right to the garage. This fence was just recently put up.
I believe this is a corner lot.
It is, but
Yes.
this is on the other side of the house, not on the corner side.
Yeah, there's an exception on a corner lot.
Even for the other side, that's not a corner.
Well, a corner lot is both sides are on the corner. That's
No, this only one side's on the corner.
I'm sure that is possible.
There's a house next door to this, so that on the left of this visual is a street, and then on the other side of the house on the right is a street. So in the middle here, where the two houses meet, there's no street.
You're considering that they can just have that, you mean, if they're on the corner lot, they can do it on either side, it doesn't matter.
Depends on what's considered there. What we actually went through this with the planning commission and the board of zoning appeals. And there's some very specific rules for corner lots.
Which side is the, what determines which side is the front of the house? There's
I believe it's
technicalities
the
regarding that.
long side is considered the front of the house. But be that as it may. I'm just pointing out for this particular instance.
Mhm.
Yeah,
This fence, it's not attached to anything up next to the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's similar. This is a corner fence or a corner yard.
This fence extends out to the sidewalk, which is against code. This is 6 doors down from our house, and it's been up for about 10 years.
Yeah, that's a unique one. We looked into that and we couldn't find an explanation for why that was permitted 10 years ago, but. we didn't.
Well, I think we just wanted to give some examples of
Yeah.
what we see and
This is an 8-foot fence. This fence on Broadmoor is held up by zip ties, and as you can see on the right-hand side, unfinished, and it's been this way for 4 years. On a side note, Fine Home Building is a publication that's the most trusted and authoritative resource for the residential construction and remodeling community. They're going to feature an article on our fence in this publication because of the design, the engineering of the fence, and the techniques used to build the fence. And we realize that you guys don't really consider this and I can understand that when you're making a decision, but it speaks to our efforts in building something that enhances our property and the neighborhood in Munster, and also building something that's beautiful, well constructed.
And if I just wanted to add something that I don't feel maybe that he emphasized, but on the north or on the south side where they took the pine tree down and the little bump out is, that new addition is all French doors, front and back and windows. And so my main concern is security there. That area, since we've moved there, we've lived there 33 years, and it's a lot more people now, a lot more people walking. It's more, and now the train is coming. And that's one of the things that I'm more concerned about, is to have an extra layer of security. And also, when I designed the gardens and things, that little area was supposed to be like a nice little courtyard, because at the time we thought we could do that. And so I just want to put that in.
And we would like to move forward and build the fence as we presented it in this proposal on the plat. Just one more frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. I have a question for Tom.
Yes.
So can you explain one more time how the front of that second addition became is it the building line?
You're talking about this section here, why that's considered the front corner?
Yeah,
Because the front yard is defined as it shows right there, a yard that is situated between the nearest roofed portion of the principal building. So in this, and the front lot line. So in this instance, this is the nearest roofed portion of the building.
nearest to
What?
To the side lot line.
to the side lot line.
Yes.
Okay. And so if that second addition had been in line with that side of the house, and the front of the house was actually what the original house front was, would we have an issue?
No.
So the second
No,
edition wasn't
this-
there.
If this was, yeah, so if there was no addition,
Or if it were in line with what's
or if it
there?
were, yeah, coplanar, so to speak, with that front, then that's where it would be.
So they could have a fence and it would have to apply to that corner or be behind that corner, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then on the other side of the yard, where that fence stops, is it too far forward?
That's correct. You can see it in this drawing that was prepared by Mr. Nixon. the fence extends beyond, see this would be the line.
So about 10 feet roughly,
I believe it's
9 feet.
9 feet beyond where the front of the front of the original house is.
Yes.
Okay. Board members, any questions?
I'll make a comment. First of all, I must say, your house is probably one of my favorite houses in all of Munster.
Thank you.
You
Thank
know,
you.
so my brother built a house on Holman Avenue down the street from you years ago.
Oh,
Newer house.
Is that the brick
the
house?
one?
Brick
Yeah,
house.
Oh,
that's
that's
a very
Every
nice
time I was
house.
going past there, I just love
Yeah.
your house, by the way.
That's a nice house.
Taking a look at this, in my opinion, I think it makes sense for your property. I think it's a nice architectural feature for the neighborhood. I think it would blend it nice. I don't understand. And maybe we should look at that roof line issue regarding some of these. I don't know if we need to look at that in the future of maybe adjusting that code somehow. Because this is a tricky situation because to me, looking at that bump out, I don't consider that as a contractor, probably in the front part of your house.
Well, if I could just say something, we just built it 2 years ago. And had we known this, we probably would have said, well, let's at least put up part of the fence first. We just thought it only comes out 9 feet past the original house.
So, that being said, if.
Well, before we roll up, did you have anything else? Okay, so we have lots of pictures, I think. Do we have a survey? Or is this what we have there adequate?
I mean, this is more of a plan, but I would say that this would be sufficient, I think, for us to determine what the fence is. Yeah.
Okay, the one picture that showed a wrought iron fence, was that just superimposed on there?
That's just some fencing that I put up there when we had the pine tree, there was still kind of a little path going through there between my rose bushes and I kind of just I didn't want people from the sidewalk to think maybe they could just go down the side of the house,
Okay,
which we used to have that a lot before we put the temporary fence in the back. And so I just put they're really just little antique fence sections.
okay,
They pull right out.
I got you. Okay, I was just wondering if that was just there, or if it had been added to the photo or.
No,
Really there?
They're really there. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I just did that as kind of a little thing to say to people, don't cut through.
And I think the intent of the request is to have an actual 6-foot fence installed in that location.
Yes.
Okay. And your fence it's wood, it's not
No.
plastic?
It's PVC.
Oh, it is PVC.
Yeah, it's PVC. It's not your regular PVC. Most PVC fences that you see are hollow. This is solid PVC. It's more expensive than wood, actually. And so it's a very high quality material.
And it's milled like wood.
And I buy it in boards, just like you would buy wood, just boards, and then I mill it myself with my tools and build a fence.
So you built it yourself?
Yes, yeah, I designed it and built it.
Okay. All right, well, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to set this for public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to set this for public hearing. Take roll.
Dan Buxa.
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes.
Sharon Mayor.
Yes. So you'll work with Tom to get notifications out to the neighbors, and we'll see you next month.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom, for helping.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is, preliminary hearing BZA 22-003. Ferris Muslet of 821 Main Street LLC requesting approval of a variance from table 26-6.4050-1 to allow a reduction in the required parking spaces for a restaurant at 821 Main Street. Do we have anyone here to speak on behalf of this request? approach the podium and provide your name and address, please.
Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Ferris Musla. I'm 11725 Georgia Street in Crown Point, Indiana. I'm representing the landlord, 821 Main Street LLC, at the location. And then I have Jason here, who is representing the tenant, hopefully the future tenant, which is Domino's Pizza. So normally, obviously Domino's Pizza falls under restaurant category. This location will be a pickup and delivery only location, no tables at all or seating. And Jason can add to a little bit more on the operations, but we don't feel that there's the need for that much parking, as there won't be any sit down or waiting. It should be a lot faster than any typical retail type of location, actually. They also have like their 2-minute guarantee. So when you pull up, they have 2 minutes to get you in and out once your pizza is ready, basically. And most of their clients pre-order, either deliver or pickup, basically. And we also, I know working with Tom, there's the ability for us to add a few more parking spaces, street parking possibly, if it ever does become an issue. I don't think we foresee it to be an issue, but we can do that either sooner or later, I think, or as needed or whatever, if that's necessary.
Okay.
Questions, I guess.
Oh, well,
Or-
let's give Tom a chance to give us
Yes.
his report as well.
Okay, yeah, Ferris summed it up fairly well. This is a strip center located sort of in the northeast quadrant of Calumet and Main Street. Currently, there's an Anytime Fitness and like a new health food store called Nutrition on Main that takes up 2 of the 10 spaces. The third tenant space is a approximately 1,300 square foot space that they're hoping to lease out to Domino's Pizza. When the building was designed, I'm just going to go on my staff report down to the second page here. When the building was designed, it was designed to have sufficient parking for retail or personal service uses in all of the units. So the ratio of parking is 4.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet of total gross floor area. So it has sufficient spaces for those uses. Our restaurant in our code requires 5 spaces for each 250 square feet. So a significantly larger number of spaces are required for a restaurant. And so as a result of that, they don't have sufficient parking on site per the code. And that's why they're requesting a variance. So based on that, they're short 19 spaces. I did kind of look into whether or not they could use the streets that are kind of adjacent to the property here to the north and to the east for on-street, so to speak, parking. It's not clear from my reading of the plat whether or not that's a permitted use of those streets. They're not public streets, they're private ingress egress easements, but they are built to the width of a standard residential street, which has 30 feet of pavement. So they could theoretically accommodate on-street, so to speak, parking. So if we were to take that into account, then again, this is approximate, they could fit approximately 12 additional spaces in the street, and that would reduce their required variance to 7 spaces, but either way, they still need a variance. That's really it. I know that they're asking for update this year, so you can see the site plan. I know that part of the basis of their request, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, is that it's not a sit-down restaurant, so they're not going to have people parking there and staying there for a long period of time. It'll kind of be in and out, but I will leave it to them to describe the operations and whether or not they feel they need however many spaces they technically would need.
Yeah, and if I can add, if that's okay. So the bigger space user is the Anytime Fitness. Their busiest time is gonna be, sorry, I operate also at any time, so that's why I can kind of talk to that. So we're busier, I would say Monday through Wednesday, your peak time, which would coincide with Domino's, would probably be dinner time, so I would say 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. is the peak time for the anytime. I would assume Domino's starts getting up busier, probably 5 p.m. and later. So you really have that gap of 1 hour that roughly we're expecting if there would be an issue. But then speaking with the prospect tenant, they're actually busier in the second half, which is more the weekends, your Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is really slow time for the gym. So that's why we don't think it's going to cause too much of chaos, even if it were. And again, Jason can speak to a few of their other locations that do high volume that have much more restrictive parking and shared parking with other spaces, and they don't have any issues if that helps.
So, Tom, how many parking spaces are allotted for this tenant space? By the calculation, as you said, 1,300 square feet?
How many would be required?
No, I mean, if not for a restaurant, or just how many would they have for the way it was zoned originally?
6.
So there was only supposed to be 6 spaces for that business, period.
Based on a retail or a personal service type of a use.
And because classifying it as a restaurant would require 19 or 19 more.
27 total,
27.
19 more.
For a nice fancy sit-down restaurant.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So it was represented to the board that a development that we approved on the north part of town, that Ridge Manor, was going to bring a Domino's franchise also. There'll be 2 Domino's franchises in Munster?
That I don't know. No.
As far as I know, we have no plans for a second one, but we do have the rights to the area. So there would be no other Domino's, nobody else building a Domino's in here.
Right, that's what I was asking. That's very interesting.
Different developers though.
Developer.
Yeah, I mean, I know franchises have geographic boundaries, right?
Yeah.
That's
So when you say you have the rights, you have the rights to the entire town of Munster?
I don't know the exact areas. Pretty much we have all of Northwest Indiana. We have everything this side of South Bend up into Illinois. Now our cutoff is the Illinois border, and then we have some stores on the north side of Illinois. And we also have stores over in Elkhart, South Bend on the other side.
But you're not aware of any other Domino's going in the town of Munster?
I am not aware of that.
Well, maybe they didn't get that in place.
It's my understanding that the building at 407, 411 Ridge Road, some of the tenants that have been previously suggested are not in the picture anymore.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, this is a preliminary hearing, so I guess we could talk more in depth about, the operations at the next public hearing. I was going to ask you about, the hours and the number of people that, will be employed and that kind of thing, and number of patrons that would be, visiting during different times. So if you could be prepared for those questions next month, we'll do it then.
Not a problem. I was prepared today.
Very good.
Madam Chair, I will make a motion to set the public hearing, BZA 22-003, contingent on the petitioner meeting all the town's notice requirements.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a second, but before, I'd like to add some discussion. I'm just curious, so I can think about this for next month, so they live right there. How many employees do you have in that store? I'd like to know tonight, as well as how many delivery drivers you intend to have in that store.
We would have anywhere between probably 3 to 7 employees at any given time. So day shift, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 employees.
So up to 7, that includes delivery drivers?
Correct.
Okay.
And
Whereas with a normal restaurant, you'd probably be looking at 12 to 15.
So you need
employees.
7 spots for those employees right now.
Correct, yes.
Right,
But most of their
At
drivers, yeah, and
But
then
the
most,
drivers will be out on the road.
yes.
but you still need a parking space to pull
Yeah.
them off in the store.
And then for people that are picking up as well, you're gonna need places for them to park too during those hours. So, okay,
All right, I have a second then.
very good. Tom, we have a motion in a second.
Dan Buxton,
Yes.
Roland Rathman.
Yes.
Sharon Mayer.
Yes. You'll work with Tom to get the notifications out for next month's meeting.
Yep,
Very
will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, next item, public hearings. BZA 21-011, Kimley Horn Associates on behalf of Target Corporation requesting approval of multiple variances for private lighting standards to install non-conforming parking lot lights at 8005 Calumet Avenue. So a continued public hearing.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just provide a brief overview because I know this has been reviewed a few times by the board, but originally Target had presented some plans to add additional light to their parking lot in order to better illuminate the pickup and go section or the order pickup section. And it exceeded a number of our standards for parking lot lighting. And after some discussion, it was agreed that, okay, that the project seems to be acceptable. However, there was a desire by the board to see some additional security in that area. And in response to that, I know the applicant went back and had a conversation with the town and the town police department and agreed to add some additional security cameras to the front of the store in keeping with the recommendation of the police department. And then at the public hearing that was held last month, there was a suggestion made that in addition to the fixtures that they were going to install on the posts nearest to the order pickup section, that they also install additional lighting in the rows of parking to the north and to the south. So based on that suggestion from the board, the applicant has come back with a revised plan that includes, you can see it on the screen here, an additional fixture added to each one of these poles here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now in addition to having the 2 new fixtures on these poles, 2 new each, there's also 1 each on the 4 in front of the, basically illuminate the entire main portion of the parking lot. I'll note just that does change the variance request slightly. Prior to that, the request was for variance from the maximum illumination, which would have been, our maximum is 2.5 foot candles. They had previously proposed 3.96 foot candles with the additional fixtures that maximum or that average increases to 4.49 foot candles average throughout the entire lot. So that did change the variance request slightly. But other than that, I don't have any additional comments. Everything else is basically the same. I know that Connor from Kimley Horn is here on Zoom.
Hello, Connor Strady.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the intro, Tom. I agree with everything you said regarding the plans and the measurements, and I'm looking forward to sitting with the board again tonight and continue our conversation.
So I wanted to, first of all, thank you for going back to Target and discussing our request from last month. It heartened me to see that they were in agreement. So I would ask that maybe we just debrief Roland Raffin on this since he was not present last month. There was some lengthy discussion about the addition of those four shoe boxes on the two pole lights to the north and south of the two that they had initially requested to add two shoe boxes on each of those two. After much discussion, I made the request that Connor go back to Target and discuss with them this suggestion, and he did, and they complied, and this is the result. Okay. Any questions for Connor?
Ms. Mayor, just have a question, Tom. So the chief was good with not putting any kind of cameras on these poles out there? Did you put any light poles in?
They did, let me see where they proposed. They have proposed to install some additional cameras.
On the poles that are being installed there?
There was one at the drive up. There was it was at the drive up pharmacy? Was
It's
one new one?
Let me check here. At the last meeting, we did go over this in detail. We spoke with, I spoke with, I spoke with the police department and asked them what their thoughts were about the security in the parking lot. And the response that I got was, it's currently acceptable, but if the police could make a suggestion to improve security, they would recommend that they add coverage to the parking lot, specifically the customer pickup area. And so what they propose to do would be add a camera to the team member entrance exit and an additional camera that would be focused right on the drive-up stalls.
So basically from the building over, nothing on the poles, that are new poles. That are put in.
Connor, do you know if that one was to be installed on the pole or on the building?
The one serving the spots is to be installed on the poles, I believe.
I can't hear.
He said that it would be installed on the pole. The one
Is
that's
is
on
my-
There are actually poles out in the parking lot then.
yes. Is my audio clear? Can
It is, it's just a little bit quiet.
okay.
Yeah, I'm good if you're putting some security on the poles. I know when I do the Walmart stores, it's a requirement to put them on the poles in the parking lot. They said during the holidays up extra temporary cameras just for security during those times, but as long as the chief looked at it and he asked, and you have security cameras on those poles, I'm in favor.
Mr. Bucks, I know you had some concerns last month. Do you still have those?
No, I mean, my concerns were documented in the minutes, and since the petitioner agreed to the changes, I'm fine.
Any other comments, questions, motion?
I'll make a motion to approve BZA 2101.
I will second the motion.
Tom, we have a motion and a second to approve.
Then
No discussion.
Dan Buckner,
Yes.
Roland Rappin, Sharon Mayer.
Yes. Thank you, Connor.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. BZA 22-001, Brian McShane of 45th Street Properties LLC requesting approval of variances to install entrance door signage and directional signage, both that exceed the maximum permitted area and do not comply with sign material standards. Referred for lack of public notice. Oh,
There was a preliminary hearing last month, and Mr. McShane was present. He discussed his petition. However, he's out of the country currently, and he did not comply with public notice requirements. So my suggestion is that it has to be deferred because we can't do a public hearing without notice. But his intention, I believe, is to publish before the April 12 meeting and be here for a public hearing then.
so we need a motion to defer this to next month.
Madam Chairperson, I'll make a motion to continue BZA 22-001 to the April meeting of the board.
I'll make the second.
Tom, we have a motion and a second to defer this, request till next month.
Dan Buxa,
Yes.
Roland Rabbit,
Yes.
Sharon Mayer.
Yes. Okay, moving on. No findings of fact, correct?
That's correct.
And do we have any additional items for discussion?
I do not, sure. Through the chair to Tom, I just wanted to give us an update on the past petitioner, I believe it was Gus on Fran Lynn. I was driving Sunday morning about 8:45 down that Fran Lynn, southbound, and the garage door was open and there were clearly two cars in that.
Yeah, the only explanation I can give is that he has a contract with a company, Salt Garza, to close up that front, the attached garage on his house, and they're waiting for materials.
Thank you.
How long do you wait for materials? Because as a contractor, we have to get materials.
Many months.
Huh?
Many months.
Many months.
Special order
Fine
set.
letter. You
It
know,
is,
a fine.
his permit, he has a permit, correct?
He does have.
Did it
a building
expire?
permit. It hasn't expired yet. He has 6 months to do it, so
It's gotta be close to 6 months, I know.
it's not quite there.
He might need a
We're
reminder that his
watching.
permit's about to expire.
We do have conversations with him. We've had a number of conversations with him. And we're waiting to see what happens. If the permit expires, then we can take action. But right now, it's an active building permit. So there's really not a whole lot we can do. If we were to pursue some kind of enforcement action, I don't know if we'd be able to really do anything because the action would be, the outcome would be secure a building permit and begin work if he's done that, but it's just been stalled.
We can find them parking cars in the garage. It's not what can you do? I mean,
Unfortunately, we've been informed by our attorney that we can't really fine for zoning ordinance violations. So we would have to take a different approach, which would be, we probably have to sue him. And the outcome would be probably that he would have to show that he's making an effort to comply by closing up his, by closing up the attached garage, which he's doing. So we're in a bit of a,
who's the contractor listing the permit, right?
yes.
So the town needs to call
Solve
them
that.
and ask them for something in writing, and when the materials coming in.
Or did he show proof? Does he have a contract with that company?
He does, yeah.
You've seen the contract?
Yeah, it was, he's got a contract permit. We require the contract in order to get the permit.
Okay.
And part of the work has been done, which was re-roofing. And the second part is to completely reside the house, and that includes closing up that garage. So they're waiting on that side, which is why they're not closing up the garage.
And they're waiting for spring. Well, hopefully it'll be better news next month. Okay, any other items?
I'll just note, I think I mentioned this last night at the town council meeting. Brad Hemingway was appointed to the Board of Zoning Appeals. He was unable to be at the meeting tonight due to a prior his obligation, but he will be joining us, I should say, he'll be joining you next month and be sworn in at that time.
Very good.
I'll also note, I sent an email out that the emergency, the health emergency, the declaration of health emergency has been terminated by Governor Holcomb. So there are some new rules that pertain to virtual participation in these meetings. Really, the three that I think apply to board members are you can only attend 2 meetings in a row virtually. You must attend more than 50% of the meetings per year in person, unless you have a health issue or or something like that that prevents you, and those are listed in our ordinance. And then the third thing is that 50% of the board has to be present in person for the meeting to be held. So I don't think anyone's really interested in participating via Zoom, but it's going to be a possibility, but just don't plan on doing it.
Who's to be the half person?
Okay, so, next regular meeting is April 12th. And
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Perfect. Good job, Sharon.
Long time no see. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's next.
I got a little beer.
Yeah, how are you?
How you doing?
Yeah.
So.
See you. I was going to mention myself.
Well, yeah, but just.
I guess I can stay over here.
I mean, this guy's. Yeah, I mean, I told everybody.
Because right now, kind of.
I know, like.
So we've got.
Yeah, right.
So.
We got an empty chair. You guys want to?
Sure.
I'm gonna sit there till No, so
How'd I do?
the attorney's not gonna move over.
Anticipate that as being the solution.
I think it's good to have a meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
Make sure
So that's what the trash. Like, so it's a great.
Councilwoman, nice to see you. How are you?
It's the important part right there. And he said that as soon as it clicks, I mean, I would have picked up some fruit. You pick it up in the back, I can pick it up in front.
I still up in the front, right, that big box in the back.
But it's an obligation. I was to say, in the driveway, there's.
Somebody had to see the Jim's gonna, hey, did you see the picture? How many cars were in the front there? When they took the picture. I know you did. I know you did.
Yeah, no, I mean.
No, we do the same thing. Mike does. I mean, we're right.
Hey, Tom.
For
the Domino's, so the parking should get back. So make that whole back section behind the building, the parking for the Domino's, sign in front and have the entrance to come in and pick up pizza and everything else in the back. And then they'll park.
College.
For
spring break, so I took them, yeah, just.
But that would be good, even if they just had a rental.
Yeah, and Mike took them to.
I would think that's
The other side up front. But that was good. You only had.
They just had a back door, half door open.
Yeah.
There you go. Go.
at 7:39. I will call this meeting to order. Will we all please rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll move on to roll call. Would you please call roll?
Councilor Mellon? Councilor Mellon?
Present.
Councilor Kulturitis?
Present.
Councilor Tulowitzki? Present. Stuart Friedman is absent. Brian Speck is absent. Bill Baker?
Here.
Chairman Raffin?
Here. That being said, we'll move on to the approval minutes from February 8th, 2022. If the board had a chance to review the minutes, and if so, what is its pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Scott.
Can I just point out, there is one error in the minutes that we identified, which I think is on the ones posted on the page here. Under the election of officers, it says president twice. So it should say President Roland Raffin and then Vice President Bill Baker.
Do we have a motion corrected? Yes. Second. Any other discussion? That being said, Tom, would you please call roll?
Councilor Mellon?
Yes.
Councilor Kulturitis?
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki?
Yes.
Bill Baker?
Yes.
Roland Raffin?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda,
There's no preliminary hearing. We'll move to the public hearing. We have PC 22001 J.O. Dell of Aubrey Enterprising representing EYM Restaurant Group, requesting approval of a development plan to construct a 3-unit commercial building, including a Pizza Hut at 815 Ridge Road. This is a continued public hearing. Tom, I'll move the floor over to you to give us a brief synopsis.
Okay, thanks. As you stated, there was a public hearing held last month to discuss this development plan. So I'll just be brief in my description of it, but what they're proposing to do is EYM Restaurant Group, which is the owner of both the Pizza Hut and the property. They're proposing to demolish the existing Pizza Hut shown here and build a 3-unit commercial building. It would be 12,000 square feet and 2 stories. The plans are in the packet here. There will be some minor modifications to the parking lot, specifically kind of the way that the landscaping islands are set up. They're providing 54 parking spaces. They're not seeking any variances. They're building the building and parking lot to code. What I'll do, there are a few things that are contemplated in our comprehensive plan that I'll just point out. This is an excerpt from that called for a town hall square to be developed in the northeast quadrant of Calumet Avenue and Ridge Road. As you can see here, this is the town hall. There was a vision for kind of like this direct connection between Calumet Avenue and the town hall. It would involve reconfiguration of probably 4 different private pieces of private property. But this subject property is located right here. And so we've requested that in sort of the planning stage for this project, they provide the town with an easement so that in the future we could potentially go in and develop that road if that project ever moved forward. I have provided in here sort of a spreadsheet of all the standards from our zoning ordinance. That was reviewed at the last meeting. There were some comments that were made at the meeting, some suggestions to the petitioner. And I'm going to go. They're listed here, but essentially what it was is use regular modular brick and limestone rather than thin brick, increase the articulation of the facade, review whether the proposed awnings encroach into the public right of way, provide an explanation for how snow will be removed from the sidewalk, confirmed that the rooftop mechanicals would be screened by the building parapet. Give some information about the layout of the second floor, whether or not it could be used as, be leased out as separate to separate businesses. There was some discussion of the aesthetics of the building and recommendation to enhance the facade. Discussion of the pork chop in the right and right out driveway to make sure that it couldn't be circumvented. Suggestion to add windows to the west side of the building and to add directional signage within the parking lot. And also a suggestion by a remonstrant to move the dumpster enclosure to the east. There is a letter, so there's a new revised plan that's being presented tonight. Not substantially different, but somewhat different. I'll just show you. Here's the facade has been modified a little bit. They've added some detail here to the parapet, or the cornice rather. They've added a second cornice above the windows here. I believe that they've made the this limestone section a little bit deeper. I know that was a question that came up, whether or not that was sort of flush to the face or whether or not it was sticking out a little bit. So that's been made a little bit more obvious. And then they have added some windows to the west side of the building, which I believe is shown here. Previously, this was a blank wall. As I said, they've also sort of provided this letter that has their responses to all the suggestions. I won't go through this all, but I'll just point out that as of right now, the plan that they're presenting does comply in all respects with our zoning code. There was one, everyone wasn't here at the last meeting, there was one thing that we pointed out, which was that second floor is proposed to be storage. We don't have a parking calculation for just tenant storage. So based on the description that they gave us about how it will be used, we made the determination at the staff level that the parking that they're proposing would be sufficient to accommodate that as well. So that's really the only thing that's sort of unusual, I guess you could say, about this project in any way.
Any questions from the board?
Has the right of way been approved or provided for the potential continuous view corridor?
We have not, that's not being provided in this. So the recommendation from the staff would be to approve the development plan contingent upon either an easement document being recorded, or that would probably be the way to do it, recording an easement.
Okay, and if there were a different use for the upstairs, what would be the impact on the parking requirements?
So
in the future, I could imagine as the Ridge Road develops, you might want to repurpose that space.
So as it stands now, if they were to propose to use that for a separate tenant, they would have to come back to the Board of Zoning Appeals and get a variance, because right now they're pretty much using all their parking.
If this were a one-story building, parking would be adequate. If there were some other use upstairs, there would be a variance required.
Correct.
Okay.
Now I have a question. For storage, how does the American Disability Act look for access to the second floor?
That's a good question. And I don't have an answer to that. I don't believe that they need an elevator, but something that we could have a, I mean,
Hey, cowboy. California.
I don't know if it works that. I don't know if they need an elevator or not. I don't think that they do. I don't want to speak out of turn. I know that when the building plans would be submitted for a building permit, we would review that. And if they needed one, that would be noted. But yeah, I'd rather not say something that I'm not totally sure of, but my sense is that if there's redundant services on the ground floor, they don't need an elevator to get to the second floor.
Services meaning the restroom.
Right, exactly. That's my
Sure,
sense.
that's why I like the answer of, you know, with the national law on the 88 regarding blinds.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Tom, we talked about the aesthetics matching the Munster shops, and the thought was is the individual suites would be delineated or identified aesthetically similar to Munster shops. I'm not seeing a real difference between the last month's presentation and this month's presentation to the point where it still looks like a saw box to me. What was the conversation that you all had as it relates between staff and the developer, whom I appreciate investing this money in the community to try to, meet that suggestion?
So I believe that they used as reference a building in the Munster shops right here. I'll just pull it up so you can take a look at it, but
But it kind of has that old school look. Yeah,
right. So it's very similar to this.
that's one suite. Right. There's the next suite.
Oops.
Don't pick one suite, you got
Right.
the whole package.
Yeah. What I'll say is that,
There you go.
yeah, it doesn't have this same level of articulation between all the different suites,
Uh-huh.
but this is really, it's not a very large building. It's I believe 100 feet wide.
Mhm.
So it's actually a fairly small building.
But that's gotta be pretty close to Chipotle, Froyo, and Anthem, right?
And this one was built as one structure. That was multiple structures, I thought.
This is a single building.
Single, so it's just facade. So the box is the same. It's just the wrapping paper.
I believe so, yeah.
So it doesn't look like one box.
So what was the premise in not having it be a little bit more unique from the aesthetic perspective versus that, which looks like Lanier School? And only Pete's gonna remember Lanier School.
I mean, I don't know. There was no, we told them articulate the facade a little bit more, and this is what was presented.
Thank you.
Hey, Tom, on the diagram here, it shows stairs going up on two of the suites, but on the third one, there's no stairs. Diagram on page
Can you show me this one?
So there's a second floor up there too, right above the Pizza Hut.
That's correct, yeah.
All
How are
three?
they gonna get there?
So I'm assuming, I don't know, I'm assuming that,
Those stairs are gonna connect to, that connects to the whole upper suite.
It's drawn, Councilman, in my opinion, not to interrupt, but it's two separate units on the second floor. So one set of stairs goes to the right, one set of stairs goes to the left. So it doesn't look like they're delineating.
So they're shared,
specific.
so one set of stairs is
Correct.
is gonna be shared by the two suites.
That's how I'm looking at that.
Or is it one big suite upstairs?
That would look like two suites based on how that's configured, at least second floor wise. So, it's not occupiable space, so it's at the landlord's discretion unless there's something else, Tom, that I'm missing.
looking here at this. So maybe I'm looking at groups together on page. Yeah, I can just tell you that this is noted as this is being a demising wall here. It appears that this is a wall as well, but Jay, maybe you can speak to it.
Whatever. Does anyone else have any questions for Tom or the board?
Well, the only other thing that I wanted, Tom, if you can pull up the picture that they had on the facing the front of the building, so we can compare that to the one that they presented today,
The previous.
the previous one.
Oh, yeah. Let me see.
Because I was trying to find it, I can't find it.
You know, let's go back to last month's meeting. Start with this one. That's the new one. That's the old one. That's the new one. There we go.
No, this is old.
This is new. This is
So they
old.
did this, the cornice and another thing. So 2 rows at the, over the window and at the, parapet.
All right, thank you. No, I don't have any other questions right now. That being said, Mr. Bell would like to state your name and address for the record.
Jane Odell, it's 6036 Metcalf Avenue, that's in Overland Park, Kansas. I'm here with Aubrey Enterprises on behalf of EYM Realty of Indiana, I believe is the actual name. So yes, to answer a couple of your questions, just right off before we just go through the whole thing, if that's all right.
Sure.
So on the upstairs portion of it, the Pizza Hut will not, I mean, it's gonna be to the other 2 tenants, not the Pizza Hut. So there'll just be those 2 access stairs. They're not using it for their thing. So it's just kind of like I believe they're using it as a amenity type thing for those other 2 tenants. I believe it was our understanding, it was more on the aesthetics that you guys were looking for from the Munster shops. It wasn't necessarily that you wanted it differentiated between the 2. So that's why we added the stuff above the windows and on the parapet. So I believe those were your specific questions for now. Did I miss any of them?
Well, mine would also be as a contractor for a business that's been around for 100 years. I wouldn't use thin brick on my shed at my house.
You wouldn't, you're saying?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
You
Well,
know, I come from a long lineage of masons, so I understand the modular concept between that and the thin brick, and I would vote no today if you're dead set on that thin brick.
So, and our thought on that was, I mean, it fits what they want to do as far as their durability for their lifespan of that building.
Well, I'm gonna use this saying, you're not in Kansas anymore. That durability of lifespan, I don't care if you're gonna give me a 20-year lifespan or 30-year lifespan, you can leave out of town, then I thank you for your business, but we'll keep the Pizza Hut the way it is and use it like that.
Even if the thin brick isn't that an approved material?
I would vote no for it tonight.
Okay, so that would be a condition then?
That would be one of the conditions, and I thought that was brought up last meeting, I'm surprised that that's still your stance on that.
So I believe it was more of a question of why we were doing it as opposed to saying that it was a requirement.
So like I said, when I'm looking for life stages of buildings, I don't want a 20-year building. I want a building that's built that's gonna last here and be here as long as the train's gonna be here.
So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Odell, and I appreciate you trying to work through the overview and trying to help us, but keep in mind, having been in your shoes in multiple markets, this is still the primary intersection where I grew up. So I've got a different perspective maybe from what's going on here. So one of the things, and as that is a premise, is Tom, is that with us going into a comprehensive plan update, is there any chances that how we require buildings along Ridge Road and Calumet Avenue may be modified moving forward? Again, my concern is with this building being so close to the sidewalk and how it's positioned close to the intersection of Calumet and Ridge Road, which is the busiest intersection in town. Nice look, by the way.
I don't know. I can't say what the outcome of the comprehensive plan would be with respect to building setbacks. I mean, typically in a comprehensive plan, you would come up with a general, policy about something like that, and then it would be in the zoning ordinance what the actual standard is.
And one of the premises, and maybe one of the council folks could help me understand this and have been to those meetings, is that the streetscape was supposed to slow down traffic along Ridge Road. Is that somehow tied together with how we're moving all the buildings on Ridge Road and why we have a reputation with people driving into buildings around here?
What I can tell you is that it is shown that the wider the road is and the farther buildings are from the road, the faster people drive. So if they have a feeling of being kind of closed in, people drive more slowly. So yes.
Thank you. Mr. Odell, has the developer looked at the possibility of utilizing the rear entrances to this building as the primary ingress and egress as it relates to tenants?
I believe that it is city requirement that the front facing ones have to be the main entrance.
Primary entrance is to be on the street, yes.
So that's.
Is that the same as what we did at Centennial? And
That is not.
no, okay, that's new.
That is new as of 2019, yes.
Thank you.
In Centennial, they take the garbage out of the front door, the street side door. In this, you'll have people walking in and out of the street side door and the garbage going out the back door.
This continues to be a challenge as it relates to how I'm looking at this project, nothing to do with whom you're representing, having to do with its location and the fact that if this gets approved, this is it for the next 40 years, at least our lifetime. And this is what it's going to look like. So it's causing some angst as it relates to how it fits into the big picture. And I thought some of the premises and what we've been sitting in at meetings over the previous 6 to 8 months has been that we're looking at this as being a different plan moving forward based upon some of the circumstances that happened here. So for whatever that's worth, I'm a little concerned as it relates to doing an approval right now based on this particular plan looking like it does right now.
I would just point out that with respect to the location of the building on the lot, it complies with our zoning ordinance, and it also complies with the policies of our comprehensive plan, which specifically call for bringing buildings up to the lot line and having primary entrances on the front of the building. With respect to the building materials, it also complies with the zoning ordinance. We do have some specific standards for facade articulation when buildings get very wide. Then they have to have, changes in cornice lines and things like that. That is spelled out in our code, but the building here isn't wide enough to hit those.
Deep, I'm sorry, deep or width? A lot, it's a lot size issue. So isn't it a percentage of the lot as opposed to a distance?
It's the building width along the frontage, right? So
Regardless of the lot size.
Correct, right.
Really?
If it's a small lot or a large lot, I mean, if it's a very small lot, then the building couldn't be that wide, but
I get it.
it's a function of the width of the building.
So similar buildings in town, just for reference, such as Shoots, most of those folks are Johns, they come through the back door. So we're now requiring that if we built that development for everybody to walk around the front of the building to walk in that way.
They don't have to not have, we don't prohibit a back door, but we just require a front door.
Right, thank you.
Tom, so we can set this building back if we wanted to. Or we can set it back up to 15 feet.
Maximum setback is 15 feet.
Right now it's set back to 3 foot, right?
You lose parking.
Correct.
But you lose parking. But there's a trade-off, like you were saying about pulling it back, that you're not right on. And you got no green space whatsoever in front of this building. You got no place to put a bike rack.
Right. And the other thing though, and when you were here, Roland, is that if you look at that, the NIPSCO poles are right between the sidewalk and the curb. So you add that thing, we add that component to it. It's an outstanding thought.
Right. So I mean, you have no green space whatsoever. You got it right off 3 foot off the line, where we could bring it back a little bit if we wanted to. And
bike rack or something, you can't even do anything along that Ridge Road right now.
But you have folks that want to spend millions of dollars in your neighborhood.
I understand that, but we also have folks that live in the neighborhood which come in front of developers that want to spend.
That's why we
So
get-
there's a trade-off, right?
Absolutely.
So,
I'll just point out, with respect to the green space, there is a 3-foot landscaped setback.
In the front?
Yeah.
3 foot. 1, 2, 3, okay.
forward in this task.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
and I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm a little, our goal has been to bring the buildings closer to the road, to what Tom said about narrowing the roads, bringing not closed in sounds negative, but just like the more quaint feel, more of a city-like urban feel. And so if you look at the section on Ridge Road at Shoops, there's no landscaping there, and you can walk in they all have front doors. A lot of people, they just choose to walk in the back. But if we do the Ridge Road streetscape, like how it came out of all the planning, we would be widening those frontages. Is that it? So then you could have like seating out front, and then that there gives you more, it's not more setback now, but eventually, and I don't know if it applied in that area, but I hate to have, I'm on the fence here as to which way to go, because if we say, okay, let's just move it back, then as we get more new buildings, we may have this effect and start creeping back again and having more parking in I know this wouldn't give parking in the front, but I know that we're looking for a cohesive and pleasant overall environment. And we are, we're faced with that people are going to come in and want to develop over the next 8 months, 6-8 months before we get this really nailed down. And that's why we had talked about doing possibly pre-architecture, if you will, like having someone, Roland, if you remember, we kind of talked about kind of laying it out. It wouldn't have to be the exact look of the buildings, but I just wanted to put that out there. That is, there is an issue here that we might, if we do one thing, then we might be setting how the rest are going to look, and it may not fit the overall vision that we try to do. So I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know what the answer is, but.
Well, when I look in the areas like downtown Frankfurt and stuff, there's enough room in that area to plant a tree, have a landscape bed and all that stuff. So I don't know if they're a little bit farther off the street from us than this.
That's not fair though, Roland. That's not, that's not Ridge Road at Calumet Avenue.
Well, it's pretty, some of those are pretty busy streets.
In downtown Frankfurt? No, not like compared to that. You've been out there at 5:30?
No, but they have their buildings pretty close to the corner.
I concur, right? I'm just saying there's not as much pressure on the roadway there in front of those particular structures than what we're talking about here. Because I like that too. That's a cool place. Pat Rosie's a big fan. So, but this particular location, being that close to the interchange, there's a lot of pressure from a traffic perspective.
Well, I think if I can respond to Roland on this. Councilor Mellon said it correctly, which is that in our streetscaping plan, we are kind of drawing the curves in, right? So we're creating more public, using more of the public right of way for the sidewalk rather than the street. And that, it doesn't set the building back farther from the lot line, but it sets it back farther from the curb. And when you do that, you have an opportunity to have green space, so to speak, within the public right of way. So you have the streetscaping. And that's what that's what we worked on with the plan, which was narrow the road, provide room within that, area outside the curbs for public amenities such as green space and bike racks.
Right. And it's a great plan, but I've also sat through a couple of comprehensive plans in the town and nothing came out anywhere near what, until we have the money and the funding, that's
Okay,
Well, we do, I mean, of course, we can't guarantee that we're getting $34 million for free for the streetscape, but we are pursuing grants right now. In a pretty serious way, we've, get the engineering firm we've hired.
Sam Schwartz.
Sam Schwartz is working on it for us. So I think this particular project is a high priority project for the council to the extent that we've hired engineers pursuing grants.
the Ridge Road's phase 1.
The grant that we're applying for would cover Ridge Road and I believe Calumet Avenue as well.
So it's, it feels to me, and I haven't sat through a ton of comprehensive plan, planning processes in this town, but this is a smaller scope, the streetscape, than the whole comprehensive plan. The last one, there are cool ideas that we haven't come close to implementing. But the streetscape is more targeted and planning to be funded by TDD, right? That's all within the scope of our TDD. So development and funding that happens there. So I think we have some confidence that Ridge Road and Calumet are going to be developed in the near-ish term, more so than maybe we thought of in the 2012 plan, comprehensive plan. Tom, is that if you think of walking down Highway Avenue, where they have a bit wider sidewalks, and there is some plants, there's some streetscape, they have, not that we do diagonal parking, but like, is that how we might think about what this location could look like after the streetscape? Smaller roads, so more room for benches and.
Yeah, I think that would be, I don't know if I would envision it like that because of the diagonal parking really.
Without the parking, there's a little, right next to the train tracks, in fact, there's a little part where there's no parking by former Bank of Highlands. It just feels more spacious when you're walking there than this drawing looks, because this drawing looks like you're walking by all Ridge Road, which is not very pleasant.
Can I ask a question real quick? And this just might be, with that, or is there right of way that's going to be taken? I mean, because I don't know how setting it back. I mean, that's still our property, right? So, I mean,
Right.
The boundary is still the boundary.
Right, the sidewalk is still ending at the property line regardless of if the building is set back 20 feet.
With the streetscape.
I mean, it's not gonna be.
And if you guys are doing a road diet where you're gonna take off a lane or whatever needs that to add it, I mean, that's on the other side of the building. I just typically.
Do you have the plan, Tom, of the streetscape and what this is gonna look like in front of this particular parcel? Or at least what was proposed during those bevy of meetings?
I believe it's online.
Because we were trying to slow down the traffic there, but because of the interchange and just the volume that goes through there organically, I don't know if there was a reduction in lanes there. Because I know. So I mean, I get what you're saying, Councilman and Councilwoman, because that look is the look that we're doing, but we still are dealing with the volume of traffic that goes through there. And some of them are trucks and some of them aren't from here. And it's a very interesting intersection.
I would agree with that. I'm sad every time I pass the little hut that got run over because they'll never be rebuilt. And it was kind of like this little special place in Munster, but
Bill, is your suggestion that the building be set back farther and the developer construct a wider sidewalk and grant an easement to the town to have a wider sidewalk on their property?
Am I suggesting that? I didn't think about widening the sidewalk. I mean, no, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just curious from the perspective of the accomplishment of the building against all these other large-scale plans for the redevelopment of town, if it fits into that. Since it's brand new. I mean, this is a brand new project that's gonna be coming out of the ground the same time you're approving a new comp plan and a new streetscape plan. And if it doesn't fit into that, that's gonna be a situation I would assume everybody would prefer to avoid. Because once you give them the approval, they're getting up and go, because it's hurry up and we gotta fill up the space and they wanna sell pizzas and knock that building down, because I'm sure that thing's expensive. It's all get out to keep moving. Not like the building next door, but that's a completely different kind of a situation.
So I would just say that yes, it does fit in.
So there's just additional, see, there's the bump out over there. So there's space that we're taking back, yeah. So that's in front of the bank. There's the Pizza Hut. So we're looking at additional landscaping, proposed idea for additional landscaping. Mr. Odell, you see that?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you're looking at, Ridge Road coming west and then the Calumet Avenue right there. So the interchange looks pretty much the same, other than further.
I believe just looking at it, that it looks like there's a little, you're gonna actually shrink the sidewalk down from where it is
Yeah.
today and add a little
Well, yeah.
terrace in between.
And then if you actually go out there and look at it, you're not gonna be able to plant trees since there's like 4 NIPSCO poles right there.
Part of the plan is utility relocation.
Uh-huh. He's building way before any of this stuff is gonna happen. That's the point.
So
There you go.
I wonder what Mr. Schwartz would think about that building and location on that corner right there.
I don't know who Mr. Schwartz is.
Oh, is that the architect?
Sam Schwartz.
That's Sam. Is that the guy we hired to do some of the stuff?
It's Ms., by the way.
Oh, it's Ms.
From the chart,
Yeah.
from the streets. Yeah.
Is it correct?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't see any issue with this personally. I'm not bothered by a 3-foot setback off the right of way. Or off the lot line. If the thought was that we want wider sidewalks, then I would say that the solution would be to request that the building be set back a few more feet from the lot line and ask the developer to basically pour, just basically install a sidewalk that would be contiguous to the public sidewalk. And then it would be, it would either be dedicated to the town as an easement, or it would just become a common law easement, so to speak.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question. Oh, in relationship to the Old Town Hall, with the amount of setback,
Old Town Hall setback, look quite a bit farther.
It's further. That's
quite a
what
bit, yeah.
that's what I was just.
Off of Ridge Road, off of Calumet, it's probably about the same.
Off of what, can you repeat that, please?
Off of Calumet, it's set about the same.
It is, oh, off of Calumet. The reason I ask is because I would assume, since we don't have a plethora of historical buildings in town, we will probably always try to keep that building. So if we align somewhat with that, at least that might be a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. A couple things that I would just point out. One, typically at a corner, you do want to have it set back a little bit farther because you want to have that site triangle.
Sure, yeah.
And secondly, the old town hall is like aligned with Calumet Avenue and not Ridge
Outside.
Road. So with this building, they're aligning it with Ridge Road so that there's not sort of that diagonal type of
Right.
setback. But
But if we chose one corner or the other of it, I'm not saying, this is the answer. I'm just saying if there is a desire by the majority of the board, they feel like it needs to go back more, that might be something to guide us instead of just picking a new setback. You know what I'm saying?
Arbitrarily.
So it's just a thought.
Yeah, I can probably tell you how far back. Far back the old town hall is.
It's not very far.
It's far. Well, this point, this person, I'm sure they were consulted for a couple hours. It's far.
Yeah, Old Town Hall is set back about 23 feet. So that would exceed our setback.
This building.
I'm sorry, setback.
Old Town Hall setback 23, approximately 23 feet. So that would exceed our maximum setback in that district.
Even on the front edge corner? Or,
Yeah, it's about,
I mean, the left, I've met.
yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Yeah, it's between 20 and
Okay,
25 feet. So.
so, would Tesca be, I mean, I know our contract is completed with them, but like a question,
I mean,
they would suggest.
their
that it-
plan doesn't really, they didn't really look at anything outside the public right of way, really. They just kind of stayed focused on that.
Okay,
Let me see if I can pull up one of the things here.
That's the road there, just because of the salt.
mhm. Okay.
And also the snow hits the, I mean, you have that building, does the snow hit the windows when the truck goes by? No.
It's hot, man.
Oh, so- So even if they came up farther, this building.
Well, that's what I tried to say before. Over here, it needs to understand it. Not because of the plow. I do. There's some good stuff in there.
Yeah, so this is our current comprehensive plan, this space. Everybody's. Okay, so this is what we're using as our guiding document here, okay? Here are the recommendations for Calumet Avenue and Ridge Road. This is talking about Calumet Avenue. But it does say encourage building placement. Mid-block buildings are encouraged to place parking to the rear or to the side where feasible. This was the conceptual drawing for Calumet Avenue. It shows buildings brought up to the curb or to the lot line rather.
They laid off the buildings.
Ridge Road, it's talking
Hot
about
subject.
recommendations for new buildings along Ridge Road. New buildings should be placed along the street with parking to the rear or side. Parking, access drives, or drive-through areas should not be allowed between the building and the street. And then this is what they show
Oh, look at
as
that.
representative of
Francesca.
what something should look like.
This would, you kind of see that kind of building, how it kind of changes styles a little bit, and there's a lot
It's not
more.
very wide. Yeah, we think.
No, you could do that on this building, that's just the wrapping. So it's all facade.
Right.
So I kind of see how the building kind of changes, not one big square box,
Yep.
And that's the kind of look that we've been going for since 2010.
How much more expensive, Mr. Odell, is to do something like that other than what is proposed currently? Significant?
I would,
Give me an ish.
I don't know. That's the building, man, I'm sorry. Well, like I said, I'm just a civil engineer, so, yeah, so.
Well, maybe Tom, you get a kind of picture of this kind of look from our comprehensive plan, so the architect can take a look at it, make an analysis. You can come back with a building that's not a thin brick building.
But isn't that Munster Shops too, that same kind of
It's the
aesthetic?
same kind, but it's right in our comprehensive plan. See it right there.
Well, somebody has to enforce it, that's the issue.
It's a different project. What about the Costanza building? Do we have,
Let's not go there yet.
We'll be talking about that.
well,
too.
how do we have a picture of it? Like a picture of the building, the front of it? Like, what is it gonna look like?
We do.
That's a small building.
It's still a building. I mean, if
I
we're
wouldn't
adding,
use
if we're
that.
looking at new buildings, trying to follow the same type of form.
I wouldn't give that to Pizza Hut as an example,
Okay.
but
So
I
we can
mean-
leave before you answer that question.
So is there any other discussion right now for petitioner? Because this is still a continued public hearing.
I would like a little variation on the front. I mean, I like the building compared to what's there now, but if we could actually get some contrast in it, it would really pop there. So that's my only opinion on this, and I would like it on the street, not pushed back. Okay, those are my,
That's one comment. Is there any other comments for petitioner right now before I open up back to public hearing?
Yeah, well, we were just looking at Apple Maps at the Old Town Hall. They have a really long, at the buttermilk pancakes, I should say. They have quite a big sidewalk there, and I was just trying to visualize the building as proposed. There's this sort of, sorry for my landscape architecture vocabulary, it's pretty limited. But there's open space where with the streetscape, you could imagine utilizing that and extending the sidewalk some way. And if the building were designed as proposed in the plan, it wouldn't give much flexibility there. I'd be interested to see a rendering of like, what's the, given the, the dimensions of the Old Town Hall building right now, what are some possibilities that we would like to focus? Because this is the one area where the road's basically as wide as it currently is due to the traffic in that corner.
Any other comments for petitioner?
So Steve, are you suggesting that the building be pushed back farther from the street? Is that the suggestion that you're making?
I'm not sure that I'm making a suggestion. I'm just trying to visualize what's the implication with the building as it is. Do we have degrees of freedom to do something with that is limited if it's built all the way to the front? So like to make such a suggestion, it would be interesting it would be helpful to have an idea of what we could do if it were pushed back X speed.
Councilman, may I?
Yes, please.
So look at the angle of the street. So you're not looking at apples as it relates to the relationship of the building to the street. So if you have the continuation of the Pancake House going east, you're pushing the Pizza Hut building significantly further back into their particular lot to keep that alignment, which creates a loss of parking because of the depth of the lot.
Yeah, and that's not the idea. I'm saying we have like this amount of sidewalk maybe here.
Right, to the property line.
Right, so the red line here is where that building
Correct.
would go. So if we wanted to expand this sidewalk and make this a bit more usable, so it wouldn't be pushing them all the way back to where the Pizza Hut basically is now. But a little bit of easement here so we could do something functional.
Would it be safe to assume with what you're saying is the basic building that's currently there, that's where the new building would still align with the current curb line? So where the current Pizza Hut is, would the new building be on that same general location to align with the depth from the Old Town Hall?
No, I'm saying it would be as presented in the current plan, but providing some space here.
Yeah, there's no space, that's the point.
So the suggestion would be to move it back
Okay.
a few feet so we could extend the
I
site.
think what you need to do is because of the way Ridge Road runs at an angle, go toward my office, go east of there. Go west. I mean, go west of there. And then visualize, that's where the building's going to be, the new building.
On your setup.
On my setup. And then
Right
in the
there.
streetscape, the street, the sidewalks literally can open up further. And that's what we're envisioning here. And you guys are telling the gentleman to move it back, and it's gonna be even wider in that spot. It's gonna look out of place.
Not where the building is, not where, this part of Ridge Road is not wide at all, it's still all lanes. This part is not being changed at all, according to your streetscape plan, right?
But Dr. Andy's right, this is what it would look like.
Right.
That's what it would look like.
That's what code
Right
has
now.
everybody building right now
But
along.
don't forget, we're not changing the streetscape at all.
I understand that, but that's a lot of space there.
So this is what amount they have right now, right there.
This is what it's gonna look like when they build that building.
This is
not-
probably, is your building right on the lot line?
Right on the lot line.
So it would be 3 feet beyond what was shown here.
So there would be 3 feet of more space between the curb and the building.
So if you want more space, I mean, this would be
So
the
that's
example,
not-
you wanna push back 3 feet.
That's
then
this
you push
much.
it back.
It's a yard.
But that's not, I mean, when I look at this, I don't think, I mean, you give a little, a few feet, only 3, but that's not as close as it seems when we,
Oh, but
for
it's-
some reason,
But
when,
it's close.
no, I know it's close, but
It's close. But people walk there all the time
I was
without a
just-
problem, and ride their bikes without a problem.
yeah,
And once they move those poles, it's gonna be even nicer for them,
yeah.
so.
What would the bike access look like in that space, Tom? It's the streets, so if we take this building that Dr. Andy is pointing out, there will be a bike lane or multi-use path added in front with the part of the road that gets put on a diet. At this
You're
location,
talking about this
at
location.
this location, yeah,
In this location, there's a multi-use path on the south side.
on the south side.
of Ridge Road.
And the expansion to this sidewalk on the north side,
Believe so. Let me,
because that would be the other way to think about it, is how could we have the width of the sidewalk be consistent? Because you'll gain more space out front.
I just think if you push the building back, he's gonna be losing parking, so that's the only thing that I see with that.
I would guess there may be.
But I would almost say 100%. That we would then, especially with the way that the building is now, that we are at parking, that if we move the building back, that we would then have to go back for a variance on parking.
Garbage in the front.
No.
Because originally I wasn't aware of this whole thing, but I believe the original thought was that the building would be for further back. We'd have parking up front, but that was not part of the comprehensive plan on the original ones. That's why we moved it back or moved it forward based off of the comprehensive plan or whatever that was that said that they wanted it as close to the building as possible.
Right, and I appreciate you
Here's the,
putting up with all of this right now, because it is, you're right, we don't want that old style of the buildings pushed back and all the, the parking in the front. So you brought us something that meets our code, and we are having a lot of discussion here about, I think we're all just a little sensitive because we're at a juncture in town where we want to get it right. And not that we've always wanted to get it right, but we have a lot of stuff that's happening like in the next 2 years because of the train and all the building that's gonna come. So we're wrestling with what's I guess you never get it exactly right, but we're trying the best we can so that we don't limit ourselves or put ourselves, back ourselves into a corner where we can't achieve the vision that we've worked really hard to define. So I appreciate you listening to all of our back and forth here.
Any other questions for Mr. Odell before I open it back up to a public hearing?
Can I just point out one thing? Sure. Just so everyone knows, and I know that I showed this to Leanne. But we were talking about the original Pizza Hut plan that was presented to the town in 2018 was the same as the one that they ended up building in DeKalb, Illinois. So I'm sure. Okay, the street names. No, I'm not.
Is that on Lincoln Highway or which one?
Yeah, it's 701 West Lincoln Highway.
I can just get an aerial view.
Yeah, that's the old one.
Oh, that's the old one.
Oh, yeah. Let me just try something else.
Just say that one look nice there.
I'm not gonna find it now, but
He's trying to look at. I understand. Pizza Hut.
Oh, wait, here, I found it, the picture you sent me. And I will say, when I saw this, the building you're bringing to us is much, much, much better. This is what they built. This is what they proposed for us. I can't remember what year it was, but this is what they're.
Oh, yeah, I remember
that
that.
was the alternative.
Yeah, that's the alternative, or that was,
This is how far this has come.
yes, it has come quite.
Gotta go a little further.
Well, that being said, I'll have you,
Bring this to a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the public? When you get up here, please state your name and address for the record.
Pete Francos, 1432 35th Street. My family owns the Old Town Hall property. One issue we do have, we brought this up last time, is where their dumpster is placed. It's right next to the northeast corner of our property line. We propose they move it somewhere else farther off to the right. And it should also be noted, we do have in writing from the owners, ever since it's been a restaurant, from the owners of the Pizza Hut property, they granted us 10 parking spaces to use there. That would eliminate those and cause a problem possibly for our tenants. That's pretty much it.
Does your agreement on parking ever expire, or is it just?
It has no expiration date as far as I know, and no reciprocity either, surprisingly. And we can bring that in for you guys to look at as well.
Thank you.
Okay?
so Whitman, have you ever heard of something like that? Because
No.
someone on limited use of someone else's property for
No,
lifetime?
no, I haven't ever heard of it. Contractually, people have told me to do just about anything, but I've not heard.
What if owners change?
That's the whole point.
Right. Owners change.
Unless it's assignable, it could be assignable.
Or runs with the land.
Won't have to be recorded.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We can take a look at it.
Great. So I should bring that in for you guys?
Please.
Yeah, is it recorded in Lake County and
I
stuff like
believe
that?
so. I'm not positive. I'm pretty sure it has been reported.
Mr. Dow, are you aware of that at all?
I was not aware of that, so I will have to go back and look at a title report to see if it came up.
And would I bring that to directly, sorry, to you guys or to Tom? Okay.
And then on the question of the trash enclosure, so we looked at it originally on the north side of the property, which is to the left of the page, kind of in the back there. But with the easement that will be through the middle, that would be orphaned if that ever happened. And there is a 10-foot landscape buffer between the trash enclosure and their property. As the ground is graded right now, most of it sheet flows onto their property. So we are regrading that and putting a low spot on would be the page up where it's kind of gored in that area, so that way we contain all of our stormwater on our site. And if you move the trash over there, you kind of don't want to have
Water.
yeah, in the trash enclosure. So that's kind of where we placed it for that. Also, it's got direct access through the drive aisle there, on 3 of the 4 stalls. And the other ones they're just gonna pull out. But if they moved it further up, on the page here, then you'd be in that island right there and make it harder for access for that truck. So that was the placement of the trash enclosure.
Any other questions from Mr. Odell?
Mr. Odell, if you have title work that would, benefit us, could you get it to Tom?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is the outlet, Mr. Odell, on the east side of the property, not the old town hall, the other side, is that the existing exit into the neighboring property, or are you creating a new one?
You'll have to, excuse me.
How can you put the site plan up that shows both there it is.
So we are not messing with any of those egress ones, and I think that came up last time when we were talking about how it didn't go straight through, and I believe that was your.
That was a
comment.
concern. So this is exactly how it is now, sans the trash corral.
Correct. So we are adding, from the existing, we are adding that landscape island between the trash corral and their property, which is now an existing parking stall. But we are keeping kind of the same drive lane width there. So that's why it's that weird 27.32 feet, because that's what the survey came back as today. So that's on both of those access points. We're just redoing them, basically.
Any other questions for Mr. Odell? Thank you, Mr. Odell.
Yep.
Cool. A lot of discussion tonight, lots of outstanding items.
Still public hearing?
Yeah, is anyone still online? Is anyone online?
I don't see anybody on Zoom. No. Just us.
There's no one else to speak of, but once, twice, public hearing is now closed. So what is the pleasure of the board with all this discussion tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, based on all the discussions that we have, and even though we are looking for an investment at this particular location, I make a motion that we table this until next month, until we can get some clarification on some of the discussion points brought up tonight.
We have a motion on the floor to table this item.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Just for clarity for the applicant, what specific issues would you like him to look
Building
into?
materials.
The building materials,
Right.
aesthetics,
The aesthetics,
facade,
Like
breaking
the
it up
Francesca
into
that's on the comprehensive plan.
multiple storefronts essentially.
Right.
Break it up. Is there
New
any-
signage plan, is this the signage plan? Is there a monument?
No,
No monument.
there's no room for monuments.
So is the signage plan what we're looking at here?
Would be a conceptual signage plan. The actual sign plan is typically submitted under a separate permit, and we don't.
Outside of the development plan, Tom?
Yeah, because signs change all the time. Anytime a new tenant comes in, they get a new
Yes, they do.
sign, and all the signs have to comply with our very strict sign ordinance anyway. So from our perspective, it doesn't make sense to bring it to the plan commission to review it, since we've already reviewed and approved our sign standards.
So this sizing and just how it's set up now is channel signs, basically what we're looking at.
Channel letter signs would be permitted in this district, in this location.
Thank you. Does that help you? As far as what he's looking for, because he's gonna be all over you tomorrow.
Jay, do you have any other questions?
So I would just ask that that you specifically say, yeah, like you were saying, you would not approve unless it's, real brick.
Full modular brick.
Yeah, as opposed to just saying, look at building materials, because that's what we did. And, the stick brick is a approved building material. So, I mean, if that's what you're just gonna say.
The
then let's just make sure.
modular full depth
Yes,
brick.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And
Modular full depth brick.
that is gonna be required, that there's gonna be articulation between the two, between
You
the
saw the
tenants.
comprehensive
I
plan.
understand, but again, that was just a picture, that wasn't a requirement of the plan. So just make sure that we're clear, because when we were talking about the Munster shops, we assumed that you meant just, one of the buildings, make sure that it had the cornices and that kind of stuff. So just so that we're all clear on what you guys are asking. And then, if that's not, possible or whatever, that's what it comes back as, and that's what it is.
And then,
If that makes sense.
I think Councilman Tulowitzki asked for some kind of maybe a rendering showing what it would look like, a little bit different based on the building next door to you.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Tom, if you might work together to further conceptualize how the post-streetscape, it can, I think it can be conceptual. It's not about architectural drawings and new engineering per se, but what can make it fit? We use Dr. Andy's office as a future state, that we can have a sort of consistent sidewalk experience for walkers, which might require a little bit of a setback. Same parallel to Ridge Road, but set back just a little bit, and then maybe to the extent that it doesn't impact parking. I don't know if there's 5 feet or something. I'm sorry for not being able to be really clear, but do you understand what I'm trying to say?
And if it works out,
I think so. I mean,
sorry?
Let's see at least both what the word parking wise.
Yeah.
I just think setting it back to the 15-foot point would be less than what the Old Town Hall set back to.
Yeah, but so Old Town Hall is like this, and this building is like this. So I'm not saying set it back here. I'm just saying there's space in here where we have a little sidewalk now. It could be a little bit bigger of a sidewalk, like whatever's planned in front of.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just saying that within that, pushing it any farther back to like even 15 feet, which would be the max in our zoning ordinance, that would definitely mean that there'd be probably, that's the 18 feet is the depth of a parking stall. So you'd lose a row of parking. So we know that that would be the case, but I don't think we'll be able to get to the point where it's like in a line with the Old Town Hall. I'm just trying to set the expectations.
What I'm trying to say is if you look at Dr. Andy's office right now, and post streetscape, it's gonna gain, say, 4 feet, 6 feet in front of it. Whatever we expect that to gain with the new streetscape, do you understand?
Yeah.
That we add just that little bit, not 15 feet, not bringing it back.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we can talk about if that's something that works for their
not
business model.
I just have the sense maybe that you didn't know much about the streetscape. We don't know much about it yet. So just to have like some creative ideas or thoughts of like how do we make it work?
And I will say that, based off of what you guys showed, that our plan works with that streetscape because you weren't encroaching into our property. So because we have that 3-foot setback, although it might not be as much as you guys envision, it still meets the criteria of your streetscape. You would still have what you planned on doing just on the other side of the road.
Yeah, and I guess my comment is not whether or not it meets the strict like definition of the streetscape, but rather imagine someone riding not riding their bike, pushing a baby stroller past the Pizza Hut building over and then eventually by the buildings where Dr. Andy's office is. If we as a town are able to maintain a consistent experience there and through that walking, that's kind of more what I'm looking at is how can we just get to a common understanding of like what we're trying to deliver for residents, and if that might inform a little bit of a shift to the building now, which may not impact any, may not have big implications for you in terms of parking, et cetera.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Tom, I'll have you call roll.
Okay, Councilor Mellon.
Yes.
Councilor Kulturitis.
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Bill Baker.
Yes.
Roland Rapid.
Yes. So you work with Tom on some of those things, and and obviously produce the, your title so we can have our staff and attorney look at it.
For sure.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is other business additional items for discussion. The first thing is 1503 Fairway Avenue, rezone from Civic to CD3R2.
Okay, this is, I'm kind of presenting this to you informally because we've had some discussions with the property owner of this property here, 1503 Fairway Avenue. This is a residential lot. And I'm just going to pull it up on Google Earth as well, so we can kind of see what it is.
Right beach.
It's right by Beach Park.
All right.
It's this house right here. There's a driveway that kind of goes into Beach Park to the west of it. We've been having some conversations with the property owner there because of the occasion is that he's been trying to refinance the property, and in doing so, it was noted by his appraiser that it's zoned as civic space. And he came into the town asking, "Hey, why is this zoned as civic space? My lender is telling me that my house burns down, I can't rebuild it." And so it's causing him some trouble actually getting his refinancing to occur. And so we looked into the history of it. I cannot find any explanation as to why it's zoned as a park land, other than I just don't have any explanation for it. I've looked back at zoning maps from the 90s, and it's zoned public lands, so the predecessor to our civic space district. So it's been used as a single family house for many years, 50 years, I think. And it's been zoned incorrectly for many years as well. And like I said, I don't see any explanation for the town wanting it to be zoned as civic space, because it's not a park. It's not even really contiguous to the park anymore. At one point, this lot was also zoned as a parkland. My sense is that it was a mistake that was made many years ago, and it's just continued to be perpetuated with each republication of the zoning map. So what I would propose is that the town initiate a rezoning of that property to rezone it from civic space to R2, which is the more appropriate district. And that would essentially make this single family home legal again, instead of being legal non-conforming. And if the board agrees with me, then I would go ahead and for next meeting, I would do a public notice for a public hearing, and then we would ask for a recommendation to the council.
I have a quick question. By chance, were you curious enough to see if there were any of the other properties adjacent to the park, if they were zone civic also? If we're gonna do this, we might as well look at all of it, to make sure we knock everything out, not have a problem with, I mean, I don't know how much work that would be, but if we have one property that's listed that way, there's a good chance there might be another one, and we don't need to keep spinning our wheels on something when we can correct it, the one.
Yeah, so this is our zoning map right here. And every one of these other lots is zoned residential, the blue.
So someone verified that is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay.
And actually, this property is actually owned by the school. So.
Makes sense to me.
What the Beach Park is?
Yeah, this part is owned by the school, actually. It was to
I
be a
can't
school
see.
site many years ago. This is Beach Park,
All of Beach Park is owned by the school city?
school town, yeah.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
That's good to know if I was running a program.
There was an agreement in place, like, there's an agreement in place for the town to improve it and use it as a park, but yeah, it's oddly enough, I believe it was dedicated to the town or dedicated to the school as a future school site, like back in the 50s or whenever, when this was subdivided.
It was just a kid.
Absolutely.
And interestingly enough about this property, this too was never actually, if you look at like the legal description, it's not like lot 5 in whatever subdivision, it was never platted as a subdivision either. So this is like an old, just unplatted part of town.
Oh,
It's not, did you check? It's not haunted.
No, it's just cursed apparently. I can't get it refinanced.
So according to GIS, the lot north of it is owned by the lot owner that sits on Craig.
Correct, yeah.
So that one is owned by, this one's owned by Hovlands. Let's see, the zoning won't be in the property record, will it?
No, and I think part of the issue was part of the reason why it wasn't discovered when he actually bought the house 5 years ago or whenever it was, is that they looked at the county. The county classified it as residential, which it is. But then when he went to get it refinanced, the appraisal.
Description, single family residential.
Right, so
That's why he's got his deduct, what's it called? Homestead exemption.
Okay, good.
Anything else?
Do you need a motion or anything?
I don't think so, no, but we'll just go ahead and do that. Like I said, we'll do a public notice and then have a public hearing next month. That'll save, if he were to do it himself, it would cost him over $800 just to file the.
Oh, you just have to hire a lawyer.
Mr. Whitman chimes in.
Our last,
Been quiet all
our
night.
last item for discussion is 407, 411 Ridge Road, frontage modifications, PC docket 2009 development plan. Tom?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just another weird situation that occurred. So this property, 407, 411 Ridge, as we all are aware, that was being developed by Guy Costanza as a commercial building. They received a permit to do the site work and put in the foundation. There was some miscommunication between the developer and the excavator, and they ended up pouring the foundation 11 inches higher, the bottom of it higher than it should be. And so Glenn Rhodes, our building inspector, was out there looking at it, and he noticed that it was, sticking out too far. Called, whatever, figured out the situation. But in investigating it, we also realized that not only was it basically constructed too tall, it was designed to stick out of the ground approximately 3 feet. And 3 feet above the adjacent sidewalk. So similar to that Pizza Hut building, it's a very shallow setback. And there's no way for them to really get people to the front door because the front door is 3 feet higher than the adjacent ground.
Counting
And
below frost with the footing then?
well, that's what actually, Glenn is looking into that.
It can't be without putting dirt around that whole perimeter.
So,
Raising up the elevation on everything else.
so the elevation is raised up here on the east side of the building because the side door, you can see kind of goes out flat, but it's here because they raised, for some reason, they decided to raise the grade here. I gotta buy you a laser, but not here. But we've got one. They went, a pointer laser? I thought you meant a laser level. They had a laser level out there, and that's how they made that determination. But so we're at the point where we need to give them some direction on how to proceed. When we brought this to light, we said, how are you going to get people to the front door? And this is the second plan that they came up with for And what it involves is, you can see here, this line right here is the lot line right here. Can you see that?
Yeah, so he's putting stairs in the public way.
He's putting stairs in the public way.
Yeah.
Right, so the plan would be to,
There you go, tear out the foundation.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
what about tearing out the foundation, starting all over again?
I
Just
mean,
a little store.
it's not our mistake.
well, these are the options. I'm just
Okay.
gonna lay out the options. That is probably the nuclear option, I guess you'd say.
Well,
But, so this is what they're proposing. So I wanted to bring it to the board here and have you guys give me your suggestions here, but this is the right of way. This is sort of like a, for lack of a better term, a stoop. So this would be raised up 3 feet and level with the door. And then they'd be terracing the landscaping in front of it and putting in a stairway down to the street, or down to the sidewalk, existing sidewalk level. You can see the sidewalk is kind of goofy here because currently, you can kind of see this grade, currently it's only set back like a couple feet off of the curb. But when the railroad comes in, they're going to relocate it to the edge of the right of way so that they have more room for their equipment. And that's typically where you put the sidewalk, on the edge of the right of way anyway. So it would kind of come back down to this existing sidewalk and then kind of go back up as it crossed the driveway, and it would match up with.
Why do you want to see all that foundation sticking out of the whole thing? You got a brick ledge and you're just gonna stay a brick.
Okay, this is option one, what's option two?
So option,
Or is there another option?
I'm trying to think here.
So
So,
I got one.
well,
I have
of course you could, the other option would be to allow them to eliminate the front doors, so that they would just access the tenant spaces on the side, and that way they could just maybe build a wall or something going all the way, finish it off, going all the way down to the ground level on this side. The floor would still be, up here, and then the sidewalk would be here. And then I guess the third option would be that they would have to redesign the site, take out the foundation. Those are really,
They should do the job right, take out the foundation, it's a small store, dig it down the right elevation. Store's tiny,
I think it's 2,500 square feet.
tiny, do it right.
How come they didn't do a rendering of what their proposal fix would look like, to show what the aesthetic would look like from the street, since that's what we've been doing for the last 5 years, talking about the aesthetics. And this guy wants to put it just a, stoop.
Well, we're still in
Doors on the
the,
front?
because we're still in the discussion phase.
Okay.
Okay, what we told them was, tell us how you're gonna make this work. And then I said, after I saw this, I thought, well, all this encroachment into the right of way, I wanted you all to review it. I didn't want to make them, design this thing out.
Then we're right back to the whole streetscape thing.
No,
Yeah.
that's true, spend the money designing it, that costs us, tell them to tear out the foundation, to do it right, that's it, right? This has been a nightmare since this guy bought this property, so this is just a re-insult on top of it, so I'm sorry.
I know, I mean, this has been very painful because this is the property that we use as the example of receiving the 7 variances, which was just like,
Absolutely.
and then, we finally approved it, it was just going on and on and on, but now, and then they can't get it right after.
Buy the property, we'll tear out the foundation.
And of all the locations in the streetscape, right,
It's right there.
Calumet and Ridge, what we just talked about, Pizza Hut is maybe number 1, and this is next to the train.
Yeah, I agree.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you want to have, sort of the ideal walking experience, this is probably one of the places.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good walking post right there. Yeah, let's start with it looking at it, and then, oh, no, it looks really nice.
Because, for context, on the other side of the street behind the Citgo, the NICD, if I have it right, are proposing to have a dry pond for water retention, and we from the town are investing a significant amount of money to mitigate that and turn it into underground to make this part of the town work right.
Steve, that's exactly right. We, as a town, we're putting in quite a bit of money to make it all come up to where we want it to be, and then to allow this after, I mean, like you said, already got 7 variances. I mean, if they wanted to not put a door there, the suggestion I would have for them wouldn't be one they'd want, because I'd say, okay, build it so there are bar stools that face here, and there's a garage door that opens. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It wouldn't be, given what they didn't want to build before, there's no way they want to hear like my flushed out suggestions for it. So, I mean,
Town's position would be build it per the drawing that was approved.
They can't because they've got 2 conflicting drawings, and that's the problem.
they got one.
They've got 2 conflicting drawings. I mean, that's part of the problem, is that the architect's design and the engineer's design didn't jive. And then when they made this final, these changes at the end, they didn't compensate for the overall grade of the public right.
So interesting that Sharinga's not here talking about it.
Yeah.
Whose fault?
Well, I didn't ask him to come here. I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to talk about it with.
Whose fault would that be, Tom? That they're not jiving, not ours, right?
No, I mean, it's
Not ours,
it's
right?
the designers.
Yeah.
Well, we better follow that building as long as it goes and make sure it's built
Yeah.
per the rendering that we approved.
Yeah, it just.
Yeah.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't
Building
know.
materials and all
That's-
that stuff, you know?
If they have to change the site layout, they may have to change the building. I don't know.
Well, it'd just be adjusting the foundation lower.
Yeah, but the problem is the foundation is designed so that it's at grade here.
Hmm.
So the overall grading of the site, they brought this up, but they didn't take into account the fact that this is a lower.
Yeah, but then you adjust your brick ledge.
They could-
Your finished floor elevation has to be a certain height, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's
so
it's
you gotta
here.
follow.
It's gotta
Someone's
be
gotta
up here.
Wait,
And
what'd you
Taranga
say?
should have sent a benchmark showing this is finished floor, this is 0, and transcribes into the height, right?
Well, yeah, but that's part of the problem, is because the finished floor needs to be up here and the street is down here. So that's, I guess maybe one thing that they could potentially do, maybe a 4th option would be to, I guess it involves ripping up the foundation, but it would be sort of pushing everything back. So that the stairs were not within the public right of way, but that would be.
Who owns the right of way, Tom? Who owns the right of way? Town does, right?
It's the street right away.
Is
I feel
Nikki
like a nice
changing any
spell.
Ridge Road for the crossing?
Put
You
in
got
some
that far
bridges.
yet?
There,
Because there's
yeah,
equipment and all that down, gates, all that fun stuff has to go all in there, and they're gonna have to paint lines and all kind of fun stuff.
yeah, all their work is within the existing right of way, but one of the things that they're doing is, they're currently that sidewalk goes right here. They're moving it up, moving it north here. That's one of the things that they're.
I think they should take it out.
You're giving Tom ulcers. He has to deal with, he's the deliverer,
I mean,
It is what it is.
messenger.
all right, I agree. Anything else? Or next?
Oh, there is one other thing. The plan commission needs to formally appoint someone to the BZA. Historically, that's been you.
It has to be someone from the board, and it's not a
Citizen member.
counselor.
Right,
Assist,
yeah.
yeah.
Citizen
Make a
member.
motion to appoint Roland Raffin.
You want to do it though?
No.
Can we second it?
Yeah,
Just think
We could
yeah,
second it.
yeah.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? That being said, Tom, call roll.
Okay, Councilor Mellon,
She's at it.
Councilor Mellon,
Oh, yes, sorry.
Councilor Kulturitis,
You first.
Councilor Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Bill, thank you,
Yes.
and Roland Raffin.
Yes. Thank you for your generous recommendation.
You're doing a great job, Roland. Thank you.
We appreciate all your time and effort.
Um,
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. I mean, Tom, is there any particular reason the BZA meeting happens before the planning meeting? Is there Robert's rule or some other public sector document that has some influence over that?
No,
Okay,
I
that's
don't know
all.
why
Thank you.
why the town does it like that. I think it was,
They drag on sometimes.
you know,
Tonight it wasn't there.
remember we switched it from 7 to 6:45. So they started there.
When you replace one of the lawyers, that helps.
I didn't have anything to do with that.
Bill Baker said that.
Since there's no other additional items for discussion, our next regularly scheduled meeting is April 12th, 2022. I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do we have a second? All approved?
Yay.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone, for your public service.
Is the governor's order, Mr. Whitman, now change the fact that we don't have to do a roll call vote for every municipal scenario?
Yeah, because I see what you're saying.
So you don't have to like have the, you know,
It's really not. It's
adjourn.
like just, you know,
Get outside the mic. You still have to do the roll call.
Right, it just seems like, I mean, Franklin's wants to-
If everybody's
I
present.
guess that's their property, but part of it's not.
It
Just seems like that. It looks nicer.
If everybody's present. If you change the premise of why you had to do that.
Tom's gonna look for it.
With this.
Right, Tom?
Because I'm in practice.
Yeah, we gotta take care of it.
Wait a second, listen.
Yay, nay?
Look at some of
Yeah, Tom,
those.
call me with the answer, will you? Is Indiana Association of Cities and Towns doing this?
Yeah.
I act. Yeah, they're pretty good. They tell you on the phone.
Yeah, they published that. I'm gonna ask Wendy.
Well, this is.
Wendy, do you do on that one?
And that's where we before.
Yeah,
So
I
they
knew
don't
that
have
was a
dual
bunch
means or
of.
however they call them.
It's,
Hey.
we'll get there. We just have, oh my God, you know, we talked about